Laura Heck, how's it going?
Good. Hi, Nate Bagley.
So we've been talking about doing this for a while. We've done the Epic Wives experiment 2 times, coming up on 3 now. We've had over 500 women participate, and we started. What was that?
Yep. Darn you, internet. I think we should just roll with it. Internet
Yeah, let's roll with it.
might be sketchy. What do you think?
Let's
All
roll
right.
with it. Okay, so we started out the Epic Wives experiment, wanting to not really knowing what the results would be like, but having confidence that we could create something awesome, and it's been amazing.
I agree. I don't think we had any idea the impact that it was going to have, not only on the wives, but their significant others as well.
Yeah.
And then the cream of the crop was having those significant others reach out to us and say, hey, I don't know what you've been up to, but my wife has shown up so differently in just this last month. It's been pretty amazing to get their feedback and having them reach out to us and say, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's been crazy awesome. So I want to talk really quick for just a few minutes about why the Epic Wives experiment is getting results for so many people, and why it's maybe different from therapy or reading a book or going to a workshop. But first, I think it's important that we kind of talk a little bit about the problem that we were trying to solve. Like, I know one of the things that was the reasons that, like, there's a reason we created this. And the reason that we created this is because you as a therapist were seeing this problem. I was seeing this problem as an educator, working with couples on a regular basis. And there's this trend where these wives are kind of speaking out and saying, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed out, I'm feeling burned out, I'm overwhelmed constantly, I'm starting to become resentful of my marriage and my partner.
Yeah.
I'm feeling crushed under the pressure of trying to make sure everybody's happy and everything keeps running, that our marriage, we stay connected. And this isn't what I signed up for when I got married. Like, when we fell in love, things were amazing. And now I'm looking at my marriage and it just feels exhausting. It's not exciting anymore. And we saw that, and it's like, man, that's not what marriage should be like. Marriage should be so much better. So let's see what we can do to help these women feel more connected, to feel more appreciated, more adored, more supported, and less stressed. So that's kind of where we started.
Yeah. And I think the important part is that we really didn't want this to be one-sided, in the sense that we were just taking the complaints that we were hearing from women and just rolling with it. But we went out and we interviewed men and got a lot of feedback about where the pain points were for them as well, in order to create this experiment where we're only going to be working with one partner in the relationship, but we knew that we were going to be hopefully solving the pain points for two people by only interacting with one. And I thought this was really important because oftentimes couples will come to therapy and one person is bought in. They're gung-ho. They did all the research. They're excited to be there. They have been, really anticipating and looking forward to this. And then they lose steam and they get frustrated because their partner is not bought into the process. And at that point, they end up quitting. And it takes a pain point that was already there and it makes it that much worse because their partner is not bought into the therapeutic process. And we find that oftentimes people will just do things on their own. We have a lot of people that are listening to our podcasts individually, a lot of people that are going to bookstores and picking up self-help books to learn more about their religion, and they're doing these things by themselves. And so we thought that that was really an important piece, is how can we impact change in the relationship by working with just one person? And that's, I think, where we started.
Yeah. So why do you that's obviously one of the reasons why I think we're getting, like, we literally, I got an email a couple of days ago. I don't know if I told you about this, but there's this woman that's been married for several decades. And she said they've been going to therapy for years. And in the 30 days, like the 4 weeks that she did the Epic Wives experiment with us, she saw more positive changes and results in her marriage than she saw in decades of therapy. And I think that's a huge reason why, is because you jump in and you're focused on you. You're focused. We help these women focus on what they can control and stop worrying and stressing about things that are outside their control, which takes a huge weight off their shoulders. And then we give them things they can actually do to get results. And they're not side-eyeing their partner, wondering if they're going to show up and do the work. There's not like built up resentment because they're not doing their part. And it's like this magical thing where they get to take the responsibility of just taking action on the things that they have control over. And and there's such a focus around action taking. And like, if there's one thing I think that people get lost in when you're reading a book or attending a workshop or going to therapy, you learn new things. And when you learn the thing, you're like, oh, our marriage is going to be better now that I know this. And that's not true. Your marriage is only better if you do the things that you know. And the fact that we have action built into the Epic Wives experiment, I think actually helps people get results.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is, and for those of you that are watching this, is every Monday. And that teaching is great. You can learn that teaching from a book, from a podcast, from a workshop. But then what we do is we will actually give you a designated experiment Tuesday, and then another one on Wednesday, and then another one on Thursday. And I find that anytime you remove ambiguity from the situation, it makes it actionable. And what tends to happen with therapy is you're sitting with your partner, you have an aha moment, maybe your partner has an aha moment, or you're doing something together and you have a shared experience. The moment you leave that office is the moment where that shared experience and that insight gets put down, and you don't pick it back up until you see your therapist again 2 weeks later. And so we really wanted to create this experience where you're getting actionable items and you're saying, do this, actually do this in your relationship, so that you can feel what it feels like to change your behaviors and to show up differently. But it's also keeping that momentum going between those week-long learning sessions. And that's a big piece of the puzzle that we figured out, is working relationships.
100%. And I think another thing that's been hugely valuable that surprised us is how valuable the community has been. Like, this is something that you don't get in therapy. This is something you don't get in an ongoing basis in a workshop. And you definitely don't get it from reading a book. Is you might get the knowledge, yes, but like having a couple hundred other women who are excited about these experiments and doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and having them be there with you to encourage you and to celebrate your victories with you and to pick you up when you're feeling discouraged and frustrated because you're not getting the results that you want, like that. We've had that community's had such an impact that we've literally had huge amounts of women reach out to us and say, hey, can we have like an alumni program? Because we want to keep in contact with these people. We want to keep communicating with them and keep these relationships and this momentum alive. It feels so good to not feel alone. And that's just something you don't get in other, I don't know, relationship improvement tools.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll say that most women are not necessarily about their relationship. Most women are talking about themselves and the experience that they're having of putting these exercises into practice, as well as the insight that they're gathering. So it's not really a place for you to be able to sort of like unleash and sort of break some boundaries about revealing things about your relationship, but instead it's a place for you to be fun yourself. And I just think it feels incredible to know that you're not alone, that your struggle is not unique. There's other people struggling in the same way. We have a Q&A session where I'm experiencing about 25% participation, where women are mailing in and sending us their questions. However, like 100% participation for people who are viewing the Q&A, which means that there are naturally going to be some of those that are asked those questions that are a little bit more vocal, and other people that are benefiting and saying at the end, the Q&A is really helpful, because I find that even though I'm not asking the question, other people asking it for me, because I don't feel comfortable either asking it, or maybe I didn't realize a question that I needed answered in my relationship until somebody else answered it for me. I did want to say something that's pretty interesting, which is the accountability piece. So we have the piece of women feeling support, but they also feel this sense of accountability. And I will tell you that Gretchen Rubin wrote a book a while ago about the 4 tendencies that people fall into. And one of the tendencies is basically this, it's called the obliger. We're much more willing to say yes or to do something else is holding ourselves accountable.
Say that one more time.
I think the beauty about the Epic Wives experiment. Okay, so the book is by Gretchen Rubin. It's called The 4. And one of the tendencies is called the obliger, meaning that we are more willing to do something else is holding us accountable rather than doing it for ourselves. So for myself, it was really difficult for me to learn how to run. And then the moment I got an accountability partner to run with me, I knew that he was going to be out there at 6 a.m. waiting for me. And I was never going to let him down. I myself down time and news and so not today. This has been a really big shift for women because there's this social pressure of obliging to one another, that we're all in this together. I can't let you down. I can't let myself down. And we are all doing these experiments, which means that the completion rate for these experiments is much higher than if we were just meeting with somebody in our office and saying, you're the only person you're going to let down. Right now, we're saying you're not going to just let yourself down, but you're going to let the whole group down. And I think that that's really an important piece of why there is such success, is that women are doing this because they're not letting each other down.
That's huge. One thing that's really surprised me is how quickly people are getting results. Like these women come in and literally on day 2, they're like, I don't know what happened, but I already feel like our marriage is better. Why do you think that's happening?
Do you know what's really funny is I think that the very first thing that we focus on is mindset. It's really about shifting the lenses that these women are looking at their partner, looking at their relationship through. And the moment that we shift those lenses, nothing has changed in the relationship. It's just the lens that they're looking at the relationship through. And that has actually, in my opinion, been the most impactful lesson learned in the Epic Wives experiment is lenses.
That's awesome. I fully agree. And for me, that's one of the most rewarding things is seeing these women come into this Epic Wives experiment and most of the time their husbands don't even know they're participating, and they just make a small mindset tweak and then go take 1 or 2 actions, and all of a sudden their entire world changes. And it's just like, oh man, you had no idea. That reminds me, like just calling it the Epic Wives experiment. We've talked a lot about this. We named it an experiment instead of calling it a challenge or something else for a reason. And would you talk a little bit about why calling it an experiment is so important from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, number one, it was an experiment on our behalf when we first rolled out with our beta group with, I think we had like 400, 500 women in that first group. I can't even remember. It was a very large group. And we didn't know what it was going to turn out to be like. And one of the reasons why we wanted to name it the experiment is that we don't want to get tied to an end result. I find that 2 people often get really discouraged in therapy because there's an end result. There's a something that they're looking for. They want their partner to change, and they've given an ultimatum for a relationship to feel this way. And if it doesn't, then they lose steam, they lose momentum, and then they drop off. And we really wanted to be more fixated on the journey than the end result. And the journey for a lot of these women was something that they could themselves, right? So women are already feeling anxious. They're already feeling stressed out about the relationship. If we can take that off of them and say, I want for you to just enjoy the journey. Be receptive to the experience that you're having and don't get so tied to the end result. And for them, that was a major shift. And I'm really glad that we stuck with that title of experiment and the whole thought process behind it. So, yeah.
I feel like marriage for a lot of people feels challenging enough that they don't need another challenge on top of it. And I love how treating this as an experiment literally removes expectations, and you get people coming in and saying, I'm just going to test this and see what happens. Like, we don't know how your partner's going to react. You don't know how your partner's going to react. Why don't you go do this? And you might discover that actually what happens is that it shifts something for you or shifts something for your partner or just the dynamic between you, and something magical happens and makes your relationship even better. And then you can go do more of that thing in an ongoing basis to continue the momentum. Mm-hmm. And so we're helping people really discover what makes their relationship even better.
Yeah. And I also think that too many people, the therapist is supposed to be the expert. And the truth is, you're an expert on you, and your partner's an expert on your partner, which means that you guys are actually the expert of your relationship. So if you go on and you take on these experiments and then you stand back and you're like, okay, what worked for us? What was the best bang for our buck? What was most impactful? Then you can start to feel like, and you have some mastery over your own relationship, which is where I, rather than us as the answer, seeing the therapist as the answer to their solutions, because I think you are the answer to your solutions.
I love how empowering that is. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to share about the Epic Wives experiment for maybe therapists who are listening, or for people who are listening who are like, maybe I do want to participate in this, or this sounds interesting?
I mean, I find that it's actually a really wonderful augment. If someone already in therapy, I think it's a really amazing to just augment the process. It gives somebody the ability to really turn their focus inward on themselves. Of couples therapy is individual therapy done seriously. However, that's not always how. What a lot of this is it's individual therapy that's going to impact the couple's dynamic. So I'm excited for our next Epic Wives experiment that's rolling out on May 18th. So registration closes on the 17th, right, Nate?
Yep.
Okay. And it's a live Facebook group. So if you have Facebook, and we also have a website that you can go to, but a lot of the interaction is happening with these women through Facebook, which is so incredible. It's a closed group. It's for women only. I did have a question. Someone had said, well, what if this person is not married? Because it's called the Wives Experiment. Mm-hmm. As long as you are in a committed relationship, this is to be. And I think it's just a really wonderful, warm space for women to be able to feel kind of held, learning and growing.
100%. So if you want to sign up, or you have clients that want to sign up, you can go to epicwivesexperiment.com for all the details. And if you have questions, or you're just like, I don't know, like I'm not still 100% clear if this is for me, shoot me or Laura an email. It's just Nate@growthmarriage.com and Laura@growthmarriage.com. And we are more than happy to answer your questions and let you know whether or not this is for you. So yeah, I think that's a great recap of a lot of what we've learned and noticed in doing this with 500 plus women. I think one of the most extraordinary things is just literally over and over and over again, watching these women do these experiments and come back and go, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel so much more free, so much more connected, so much more loved. You know, we've got husbands whose wives, who they don't even know their wives are participating. They're cooking dinner, you know, and saying, hey, what stress can I take off your plate? They're buying flowers. They're doing things on the honey-do list. They're initiating sex again. They're taking them out on dates. They're sitting down and listening to their wives talk about their emotional frustrations. They're sharing their own. I remember just one of the women who shared last time talked about how she had a very introverted husband, and how she went and had a conversation that we had prompted her to have with him, and he burst into tears. And he was just like, thank you so much for saying that. And it was like this whole dam broke loose where she had felt shut out of his life. And then all of a sudden she felt connected. And like, we just get so many of these stories every single day while we're going through this experiment of people who felt stuck, and all of a sudden they have this freedom and this connection. And I'm just excited to offer this to more people, because all it's doing is just helping lives and making marriages better. So
I agree. One last question. How much is the Epic Wives experiment? I'm sure people are wondering.
Yeah, it's like $59. So less than half of one session with you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And you're getting me 5 days a week, 5 days. Oh, you're welcome.
Anyway, so we hope that we see you join epicwivesexperiment.com, and we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks. Take it easy. Thanks, Laura, for tuning in with us and doing a little interview.
You're welcome.